Hello everyone, welcome to Gold Nugget, JAW underscore success. If this is your first time to the channel, let me welcome you. If you have already subscribed, let me thank you for joining me on this growth path. In fact, let me welcome you to the town of Letchworth, one of the beautiful places to live in England if you decide that you want to relocate from somewhere else to live in the UK. This is en route to the town center, so you know and you can see in the distance. Now, as you can see, the sky is up to its usual. You know, this is how it is in England. You always have rain and some kind of weather to give you a lot of opportunity to share certain nugget. Now, when you are from a particular background, right? You come from a particular community that is in the center of nowhere, or you come from a family that has certain limitation. The family is broke, don't have any money, there are health issues that are always plaguing the family. You tend to feel as though you are restricted and constrained. Now, this nugget today has to do with dealing with restrictive priorities, restrictive priorities or restrictive options, right? Narrow options, few options. It is also dealing with fearful outcome. Now I am heading down a pathway that I have never been before. Now I could stay at this point and spin around and just keep spinning around hoping that something will change because I have no idea of which direction to go, right? I can continue to be fearful of the path and continue to walk down it. If there is anything I want you to rest assured, somebody created this path. It might not have been created by me, but there is something at the end of this path. Whether it is an open space that I can walk to somewhere else or not, this path is restrictive. It doesn't give me many alternatives. I can't go over the wall because, as you can see, there are spikes, and I can't go over this side because, as you can see, it doesn't give great opportunity for climbing, and even if I climb it, I'm gonna end up in some bushes. Doesn't give me any alternative. So when you live in a position or your life is filled with restrictive alternatives, you have got to understand that there are options. There are still options, right? I can't go down because I would need a drill to go through the ground, and I can't go up because I would need something to rise me out of this. Now, the decision that I have here when dealing with restrictive priorities, right, or dealing with fearful outcomes, when you don't know what lies ahead, you can choose to turn back. That's a choice you have. You already know what is up that direction. You already have experienced it. Many of us have experienced failures. We have experienced rejection up where we're coming from. But at least we know where it is. Many persons will choose to go back to that. Go back to the condition that they were in before. Revert to the mindset they had before. Revert to the things that they are accustomed to, instead of spinning around and say, I don't know what is at the end of this restrictive alternative. I don't know what is at the end of this fearful outcome, but it might be better than where I'm coming from. Yes, going back to where you're coming from give you an opportunity for starting over and to choose to go down another path. That is always correct. But if you want new experiences in your life, you have got to decide in your mind that even though this is a restrictive alternative, even though there are fearful outcomes and I can't turn left or right. As I said before, you might come from a little village in a backwoods, right? That village is in the middle of nowhere. You might have to marry one of your distant cousin because there is no body from the outside coming in, and you feel pressures. When we face restrictive alternatives and when we face fearful outcomes, there is always this opportunity. There is always this thing that says to us that we are never going to make it. Depression can set in. All manner of evil can set in. But if we continue to face the journey and walk on those restrictive alternatives, we might come to somewhere that shows a big wide world, right? We might come to a gate, even if that gate is not open to us or for us. It shows us that the pathway that we were originally traveling on might not have been the best pathway for us. Again, we can turn back and go where we are coming from. But that's not how life is. Life gives us a wonderful opportunity to see what is ahead, what lies ahead. I never knew that this gate was down here, but by continuing to follow the path, even though there are restrictive alternatives and fearful outcomes, that's what a lot of us tend to focus on. We tend to focus on the restriction and we tend to fear the outcome. But I'm saying to you in this nugget, don't allow the restrictive alternative to keep you bound. Don't allow the fearful outcome to stop you from having new experiences, from seeing new places, from getting the opportunity to learn that there is something different at the end of a tunnel. This is my first time coming down this spot. I have always walked by it going home, but today, to bring about this nugget, I chose to walk down this spot to say to you, you may not know what is at the end of the tunnel. In fact, this path might be taking you away from where you are supposed to be going. And that's another thing that I want to bring about with this nugget. This path might be taking you away from where you are supposed to be heading. So you must have the common sense to know that this is really taking me away from where I am going. And even though there are things over on the other side, I can't go through this gate. Now, if I choose to go through this gate, it was blocked off. There must have been a reason why they block it off, but it is not for me to go through. That probably would be breaking and entering, and I don't want to have that record against my of that charge against my record, so I keep walking. Again, I don't know what is at the end of this tunnel, and it might make sense to turn back, right? But as I said before, when you live in a place with restrictive alternative, when you have fearful outcome, there is no better thing to do than to continue to walk and see what lies at the end. As I said before, it might be leading me to nowhere. It might be taking me away from where I'm supposed to be going. But again, if you want to see and experience new things in life, you're going to have to face restrictive priorities. You're going to have to face the fearful outcome, and you've got to keep moving, because at the end of the day, every path I was taught leads to somewhere. It might not lead you to exactly where you want to go, but it leads to somewhere. And if you follow it, you might end up at somewhere better than you have already experienced. You might end up in a place that you see new things and get the opportunity to experience new things. Now, why will I turn back at this point? Because as I said before, we must have the common sense to know when a path is leading us off key, it is leading us away from where we are supposed to be going. Not many persons know that when you're dealing with restrictive alternatives and fearful outcomes, there is a decision that you have to make. And sometimes that decision is to say, guess what? I ain't going any further than this. I am turning back. I am going to take one of the alternatives that was given to me earlier on. We passed 2 gates before. We could have taken one of them. And this is what I want to leave with you in this outcome. Find a way. Develop the common sense to know when something is taking you away from where you are supposed to go, because that's what restrictive alternatives seeks to do, and fearful outcome. They tend to take you away from where you're supposed to be going, but you must have the common sense to say, this is not the direction I want to go. I have followed this path long enough and I am not going any further. I am turning around. Regardless of what is at the end of the tunnel, I know where I'm coming from. I know where I want to go, and I know that is another thing with a lot of individuals. They don't know where they want to go, so they follow paths that have restrictive alternatives and fearful outcomes, and they follow those paths to the place where they end up in more trouble, they end up with more pressure than they want in their lives. And so this nugget is simply saying to you, when you're faced with restrictive alternatives and fearful outcome, know when to turn, know when to say enough is enough. I know where I am going, and how you deal with that is by knowing where exactly you're going. As I said, when you're faced with restrictive alternatives, fearful outcome, know where you're going, because that is how you overcome every situation. Yes, by going down the path, you will learn something new. I just learned that this path would carry me further than I want to go. But at the end of the day, that's the lesson I have learned. And so this is JAW saying to you, when faced with restrictive alternatives and fearful outcome, know when to turn, know when to say enough is enough, and get yourself to the place where you can make proper and meaningful decisions. God bless you. Bye.